Yo, what is up guys, Chillfeed here, back with another video of Borderlands 3. Now, I haven't really been playing Borderlands 3 lately as much as I thought I would before the release of the new Maliwan Takedown event. I was so excited for the new content drop, the new area to play through, a new challenging activity alongside a new Mayhem mode after everything else has been relatively easy at this point, and most importantly, new and cool legendaries to farm for with dedicated loot drops, and on top of all that, a bank with 300 slots to store all those new goodies away. But as it turns out, nothing of the above mentioned is as enjoyable to me as it sounds on paper, at least everything other than the increased storage space. And I want to go over the reason why I think that is the case for me and many other people I've seen complain about it, and why I think the Mayhem Mode 4 needs to change just a little bit. Now keep in mind while watching that this is just my own personal opinion, and I know that there are many people out there who enjoy the basically new difficulty setting, and that's perfectly fine. I just want to point out the issues I have with it, and maybe you agree with me and maybe you don't. Make sure to leave a like on this video if you do agree with me and also think that it needs change. That way it might reach more people for a potential change in the future. And with that being said, let's get right into it. Okay, first of all, there are obviously a lot of things I like about the new patch. Like I said, especially the bank storage space is amazing now. After all these weeks struggling to manage your inventory with the horrible UI, which is still horrible by the way, but now at least you don't have to worry about collecting legendaries or unique items that much anymore, and that feels even better than I expected. Also, I was playing the Maliwan Takedown event on M4, and from now on I will call the modes just M4 and M3. With a few of my subscribers, we were all playing with Metamara of course, and we all had a blast playing the event. Beating Botan with 4 face cuts, 250% damage bonus cutsman felt oh so satisfying, and it was overall one of the best experience I had playing this game since launch. The challenge was good and satisfying as well, even though we cheated a little by reloading back into the game until we got plus 30% SMG damage from our Mayhem modifiers, which in and of itself is also another nice addition. The Mayhem modifiers on M4 now don't feel as annoying anymore as they sometimes do on M3. Now you will always get one beneficial modifier for you and your teammates, and one that basically buffs your enemies. And even though I think this is still not optimal from a gameplay perspective, it's definitely a step in the right direction and definitely better than potentially debuffing your entire loadout, which just, in my opinion, encourages a reset until you get better modifiers really. Another great addition are the new legendaries, of which most of them feel very unique, allowing for even more variety in your gameplay style on lower difficulties than M4 that is. Also adding new possibilities for build ideas, and there are even new anointments that are really good sometimes and some of them not so much. But the point is, it's something new and it's refreshing, and that's always good for a game that revolves around a constant gameplay loop of shooting and looting stuff. Now you might be thinking then, why do I want things to change if everything about the new changes seem to be fine? Well, let's start with the Mayhem mode in general. As we all know by now, what Mayhem mode does is that it increases your enemy's health, shield and armor to make the game a little more challenging the higher you go from M1 to now M4, while simultaneously increasing the chance at rare loot, more iridium or cash and experience in return. In general, I'm not a big fan of quote-unquote increasing the difficulty by just increasing their health, but I was fine with Mayhem Mode 3, buffing your enemy's health by 100% and their shields and armor by 150%. It gave a decent challenge for the most part without being too difficult or too easy without the most optimal gear for your characters. What I also liked about it, especially during the first couple of weeks, was the fact that you got so much loot in return for playing on the highest difficulty, maybe even a little too much at first, but at least it felt rewarding, and that's what it is supposed to be like in a loot-based game. Higher risk, high reward. But with M4, Gearbox basically added nothing new or fresh to the game except for making you shoot at the same enemies you were already shooting at for a few months, for now a much longer time, by simply increasing the health by a ridiculous 800% and the shield and armor by 1000%, without adding anything in return to significantly improve our gear. So we're pretty much limited to the same stuff from before, whereas some people already struggled with on Mayhem Mode 3 in the Slaughter Shaft for instance. There's been so many examples of games in the past where people have complained about bullet sponge mechanics in video games like The Division or sometimes the bosses in Destiny. Now granted, I think most of the boss fights are a lot more interesting and engaging in Borderlands 3 than what they are in The Division, and they are not as complicated to the point where you just constantly have to look up Dado's video to get an idea what in the world you are supposed to do. The rare loot chance increased from 500% in M3 compared to now 700% in M4 also doesn't really seem to be much of a difference, at least not a difference of 200%. But I don't know if these numbers are correct anyway, since they were the same numbers from before the M3 patch and there was significantly more legendary loot than there is now. And of course you could say that Gearbox added a bunch of new legendary weapons, shields and class mods to the game to supposedly be able to compete in the more challenging M4. But even though I haven't tried them all, I have seen the videos about them and heard the opinions of other YouTubers and subscribers. And if it's not me to tell you that they are not the game changers you would need to compete with the few other meta weapons or gear we already have, it's them that can tell you about it. And of course they can't make them miles better than the legendaries we had before, because the game would become a mess in terms of balance and everything else would just become completely useless compared to the new stuff. The fact that I have yet to try all of them is also part of the reason why I don't like the new update. Simply because the drop rates for the legendary weapons, the new ones, class mods or shields seem to be so incredibly low. Like I was farming for 6 hours straight the other day, not even exaggerating, 6 hours straight, and all I got was the new OM M shield, the new Raging Bear class mod for Mouse and the Kipsworth SMG. That's it. That's it for farming the Rampager, that's it for farming General Tron, for farming Billy the Anointed, and for farming the new event a couple of times for 6 hours in total for 3 new legendary items. Except for the event that's basically farming the same enemies we have been farming for the past couple of months since the game came out, with nothing new to them except for bigger health, shield and armor bars and a tiny chance at dedicated loot drops for the new weapons, and you also have to be on M4 in order for them to drop the weapon too. Even the event takes such a long time, if you even manage to beat Voten at the end or the Valkyrie squad midway through, which I'm not even gonna lie, can be pretty tough sometimes, even on M3 if you're not fully kitted and playing in the 4-man squad. But at least some of the new weapons in there can also drop on lower Mayhem levels. At least me and a few of my subscribers got them on M3, which is good news for those who thought they can only drop on M4. And now you might say for just the event, drop down to M3, play with a bunch of your subscribers and you're fine, which is true in a way. But at least for me, and that could just be me whining about it, I now feel a little spoiled by the new Mayhem modifier system in Mayhem 4, that the Mayhem mods on 3 are sometimes even more annoying than they were before. But that's probably just me and I'm being nitpicky or whatever, and I'll just have to wait for Gearbox to drop Mayhem 2.0, which they should have released alongside Mayhem 4 anyway in my opinion, but I digress. My point is, they release a new and exciting event into the game, just to add a new difficulty option, lock away new items behind that difficulty, increase the time spent fighting the same bosses over and over again, like we have already been doing for over a few months now, and make it basically impossible to enjoy your playing time solo, which many players do in this game, just to take all that excitement away again. Now many of you might say, but there are many YouTubers soloing the event with relative ease, which is true, but keep in mind the weeks of preparation they had to get through to get the best anointments and best gear in the game, which also not many people are even able to do. And on characters like Flag or Zane, it's even harder to finish the raid solo, unless you spend like 2 or 3 days of trying with the best gear like Thick-Fillet did, and kudos to him for his persistency and determination and finally beating it, but that's just not something I and a lot of other people want to go through just for the sake of beating a boss. I don't want this to turn into too much of a rant, and I don't want this channel to take such a negative approach to gaming. All I want is to have fun in my video games, and now that I got at least somewhat of a voice with like over 2,500 subscribers, I want to make use of that, and who knows, maybe it helps to improve the games we love and care so much about. I still obviously love Borderlands. It's been one of my favorite game franchises ever, and obviously this isn't that big of an issue, and of course many people, myself health included, are still enjoying the game for what it is, but I don't want this game to be headed in the wrong direction, which this update, in my opinion, kinda was. I have to say though, what I absolutely love about the update and why this feels even harder to complain about is the fact that it is completely free. In an era where developers put a price tag on basically everything, like just a red dot sight for your weapon or something, I really appreciate the fact that Gearbox decides to take this approach with free content updates and cosmetics. Still to this day, people would say how bad the slag mechanic in Borderlands 2 was for Ultimate Vault Hunter mode, since it would just limit you to a specific type of gear, and with increasing the health by such a ridiculous amount, it's basically the same thing, only allowing for the most strongest weapons with the most strongest anointments. And speaking of which, the anointments just increases the amount of RNG we have in this game, so it's even harder to get our hands on the best weapons with the best anointments. I just hope they take a look into the health increase and make some kind of adjustment before they increase the level cap, and maybe even add something similar to what Ultimate Vault Hunter mode was, so they hopefully won't make the same mistake there. Again, it's a mistake in my opinion, and I'm sure many other people see it the same way. I also hope for them to get rid of the straight increases or decreases for certain damage types and add something more engaging and visual, like your enemies release a strong nova damaging everything close to them after being killed, or they leave behind corrosive puddles like they do sometimes in Destiny 2. Or maybe even something fun like an explosion of confetti on a critical kill like they did in Halo way back in the day. Anyways guys, this is just my opinion and my issues I currently have with this game. Let me know down in the comment section what you think about all this, and leave a like if you agree with me. Also let me know if and why you don't agree with me, but please leave out the words "get good noob" or "you just suck" out of it, so we can have a nice little conversation instead of me just straight up ignoring you. And with that being said, thank you guys for watching. Please consider subscribing to my channel, and I see you in my next video.